We are going to be mixing it up a bit and focusing on a new series. In this series, we will be breaking down the teacher transition process firsthand from teachers themselves. The teacher transition process can be challenging and tricky, but I wanted to give you a first look into what it looks like when you've made the transition. So we'll be hearing from teachers who've made the transition successfully throughout different roles in the post-classroom setting. We'll hear from their hardships, what the transition looked like, their stories, and everything in between. Nothing is off limits, so tune in, turn it up, and let's get ready to do this. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leena Marie Saleh, the Edtech Guru. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me on this journey, for all the support that you give me, and for following along. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and let's get ready to do this. Thanks so much for joining us. We're mixing it up a little bit by focusing on a new series where we are focusing on how teachers have made the transition out of the classroom. Today, we are joined by Stella Ikhnana, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself and how she has made the transition out of the classroom. So Stella, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and just your story?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am a 10 years former special education teacher, and I made the pivot as of July 2021 into tech. I was really interested in finding roles that continued to support people in achieving their goals. And so customer success was where I dove into, and I had a role as an onboarding manager with an edtech company, and currently I landed as a client success manager. So I got to my goal. It took about 8 months of I fully understood where I wanted to be, did self-reflection. There's a lot of inner work that needs to be done before you can just dive in. And there's a lot of people telling you to do here, here, and here. So you really have to think about what you want and where you want to end up that will be most helpful for your future, for your mental health, and your sanity.
Completely agree. And Stella and I, we were just talking before the start of this, that this is kind of like our year anniversary of chatting together. And so why I wanted to bring Stella on to share her experiences. You all have heard from me, but to share from Stella's experience, because when she first left the classroom, she started immediately taking some initiative on steps to actually leave the classroom. But before we get into what she actually did, how she kind of made the journey, let's talk a little bit about what made you decide to leave the classroom.
So within my 10 years of teaching, I started in the position, of course, to help people achieve goals and really do that by relationship building. As anyone in education has seen, throughout the years, priorities within the educational system have shifted. Just like if you were working for a company and you were hired to do blank, and then they started kind of saying, oh, this is what you need to do now. This is where our vision is. Sometimes that no longer aligns with where your moral compass is. And that's what really drove me, even pre-pandemic, to start thinking about my future, because I saw the way the educational system was heading was not something that I was aligned with. I'm very much someone who's a forever learner. I would be the one that was attending all the trainings, trying to infuse what I learned within the classroom. And all the different things that you can and cannot do. The can't do list started increasing a lot more. The expectations started increasing more. And when I clearly stated, what is my priority here? I want to work with students. And there was so much of my day that was not that. And so I really had to take a inventory of what was happening. And I thought, I need to take steps to exit teaching. I could not see myself retiring, and I was glad I made it to 10 years. The pandemic definitely did not help. As anyone who's been pandemic teaching, this is year 3. I thought, this is it. This is going to kind of switch things up. This is our time to make things different. Unfortunately, that did not occur. It was kind of like status quo, do what you can with all of what was happening. And so that really clearly told me things will not change. And so I need to respectfully bow out and find something else that will continue to utilize my skills, I have 10 years as a client-facing role, dealing with tons of different people. And so it's definitely skills that we have that can be transferred elsewhere.
Exactly. And I think that you mentioned this earlier when you were introducing yourself, but the fact about mental health and wellness. I recently spoke to a couple of other people just about like the mental health and kind of what we experience as teachers. And I think that sometimes the teachers are put on the back burner as far as what we need to do for our well-being. And when you, I don't know, I know that you really made the decision after the pandemic had begun to really leave the classroom. But when I had left the classroom, people were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And there was no one who was really leaving the classroom. And that was just 3.5, almost 4 years ago. So I think that the stigma sometimes is like, oh, teachers can't leave the classroom. Oh, they can't. People in your space or at your school really kind of look down upon you when you do kind of make the decision. Did you feel like you had sort of that same experience in your school setting as well?
Yes, I believe so. It's kind of like, because people don't know, they assume you have to go get another degree or certificate, or, I've spoken to several people who are very not happy with their situation, and they'll say things like, I'm 6 years away from retirement. And I'm like, 6 years? That's a long time. And, thinking about myself, I've had 20 plus years left. I'm not doing that to myself. And I completely agree with the mental health state. It was not okay. The amount of pressure and the, must do things that we were told were impossible to get done. Frankly, impossible. And I had a conversation with an administrator saying, I wrote out a list of everything that I was asked to do. And I said, I can't do this. I said, what are the 2 or 3 things that is required of me where I can put my time and energy? I got that list. I wrote it on a Post-it and I said, this is all I'm doing, because I cannot keep going at this rate without, losing my sanity, which is where I was very, very close to. And so, yes, I do feel like it's not intentional, but it is like a shunning sort of, because now when I try to relate to the people that are in the classroom, I just can't, and I do encouraging things. Hope you're having a great spring break. You got this, a few more months, just because I know the flow of the year. But it's definitely very hard to stay in contact with people that are still teaching, because it is like you jump ship. And so I think that's a huge thing that's not talked about. And I've had a few reach out and say, oh, like, what are you doing? And so I explained to them, they're like, we could never do that. I'm like, yes, you can. So I think it's, definitely a big question mark as to how to do things. There's still not a roadmap. No one's like, this is how you do it. Get out of the classroom in blank months. If you see that, that's fake because there's no set roadmap. You have to figure it out. But I do agree that there's a lot more resources now and people sharing their stories of what they did. And then you can come to your conclusion as to, is this going to be the way I go, or take little pieces of each person's story?
I think what's also really something that should be mentioned with your story is that when you did decide to actually leave the classroom, it's taken quite a while for you to, I guess, finally find your home, I guess you would say. But I would love to hear about kind of what you did in the interim to kind of get to the point where you are today.
So in January of 2021, I enrolled in something called Classroom to Boardroom. It was created by Carrie Conover. And so she was a former teacher turned customer success manager, and now is the founder of her own company. So that was a great cohort, letting me understand what are the different avenues I can take outside of the classroom. And so I learned things like, what is sales? What is account manager? What is customer success, product, content writer? And so that once I did those activities, I was able to really focus on, I really want to do customer success. Then I learned LinkedIn is where you have to be. My full-time job was LinkedIn. I would jump on there 7 to 8 hours a day during the summer, of course, because I was still teaching until June 2021. I would just network with people, find people that have made the switch, really invest in those communities such as CS Insider or Gain, Grow, Retain. What's lovely is that so many of the people were very kind and welcoming and wanting to help and answer questions. And so that was a bit shocking. I was like, wow, you really are just going to chat with me for free? I have asked people, is this like a charge? Like, I was like shocked. I was like, are you a coach? What is this? And they're like, no, I'll answer any questions you have. So I think the biggest thing is like shoot your shot, because people are very willing to meet with you. I landed a role at an edtech company as a customer success advocate for about a month. And then that wrapped up. And then I got an onboarding role at a different edtech company. And that really helped me understand how to work completely remote and how to utilize, again, my relationship building skills, my cross-functional team skills. And then I am currently at a PR and marketing company as a client success manager. So it did take, I kind of count it from July. So it took 8 months after I put in like full-time work to land a full-time gig. It's a marathon, I say. It's not a sprint. So it's a daily effort that it takes.
I think that sometimes when I'm speaking with teachers, they're like, oh, well, I hope I can spend the summer and I'm going to get a job by August. As much as I wish that were the true story of how it works, it's just it's a super competitive market right now, probably more competitive than it's been in a few years. But the second part is there's just a lot of work that you have to do. It's not that as a teacher, you don't have the work. There's a few things that are part of it. Like you said, it took a while for you to kind of explore. So you took the Carrie Conover course, but sometimes you just have to figure out what it is that you want to be doing. So taking classes, taking different things. So you were side hustling and then picking up side gigs. I know that most people don't talk about this, but really picking up, and I've mentioned this in other videos as well, but picking up some sort of a side hustle will kind of help solidify that. Not only does it help solidify that you can kind of, just kind of hustle in a different way, it also shows initiative to people who are looking to hire you. Something that I also like to kind of like bring up is don't be afraid that if the pay isn't exactly what you want it to be for these contract work, and I'm sure you can speak to this, it is a big transition, despite you having the skills to be able to work in these new roles and positions, but it is quite a transition from working every single day in the classroom. And kind of at some point in the classroom, you can almost close your eyes for a couple of days. You could really cruise control for quite a few weeks before you really have, because you just get so good at it. You know what you're doing, you know what you need to do, you know what your expectations are. But when you go into these new positions, can you speak a little bit about what you kind of found yourself in these like side hustles and the transition that you kind of had to make there?
Definitely. It was kind of shocking and a hit to the ego of, some of the contract pays, whether it was hourly rate or kind of the monthly amount. However, I thought to myself, well, honestly, I had been saving for years because I knew I was going to make a transition. I also had a nice amount, that comes in throughout the summer. And so I thought to myself, I need to have something else on my resume that's in addition to my educator experience, because that's what I saw was the biggest thing when I was talking to people. They said, oh, I see you were an educator. Any other time when you've done something different in tech, in sales? And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to get that. And so I was willing to take a, not the most glorious salary, but that is okay. And what's great is that now those positions can never be taken away out of my resume until I want to do that. And so I think that's really key. What I found as a remote worker is that it's completely different from the Bell schedule. And of course, they provide you with a sketch, or these are things that you need to complete daily or weekly. There's a lot of flexibility. Even the idea of not scarfing down your meal in 10 seconds because you don't have to go upstairs and have individuals that you're responsible for, like taking half an hour lunches. That was new to me. Something as silly as like utilizing the restroom when you want to, getting up and getting a drink of water. All those things are vastly different. And it's very strange to be able to do that in the comfort of your own home. If you're looking for a position that's in office, it's definitely, I feel like, a more relaxed feel, as opposed to the classroom when it was very extreme stress. And I would say like you were on all day. So I feel like that has completely subsided, which is wonderful. And I'm someone who asks questions and tries to get to know people. So I think what was helpful was that I continue to do that even if it was virtual. So I would message people within the organization and say, hi, I'm new. I'd love to learn about your role. How does it connect with what we do here as within the onboarding team and different things like that. So you need to take initiative and go ahead and do that, because of course they're going to match you with people and your teammates, but you can go out and do more. So I think that's something huge. As teachers, we're always trying to chat up, oh, this gen ed teacher working with this PLC member, whatever it is. And you need to continue to do that because everyone is, busy with their day to day, and to stop and think, oh, everyone's going to check in with Stella and see how she's doing may or may not happen. So don't be shy in saying, I'd love to chat with you, because 100% of the time people said yes, or this week is a little bit busy. Let's do something a few weeks down. And it always works out.
I think that's a really good tip too, is to, even if you do take something like contract work or something like that, being able to meet with the people within the organization, because sometimes they may click with you and they may have like a referral for you, or they may know someone somewhere. So it's always really great to continue to keep networking. If you haven't connected with Stella, I'll include all of the things that she's talked about today in the episode notes below. Stella has also taken some other initiatives outside of just networking and taking these like contract work positions, but she started to really hone in on the power of networking by leading some like group sessions, some panel led talks and discussions. So Stella, do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of those things also?
Sure. So what I saw was that on LinkedIn, people would offer sessions about, what do they know about their background or expertise. And so I connected with another teacher who transitioned to customer success, Raven Wilson. And so I thought, let's lead something, because both of us were being asked questions on what we were doing. And so instead of replying to all these individuals, we thought, let's just put this all together. So we led teacher talks. They were once a month since, I believe, October, September. And so we do things like, talk about our transition, how it is that we did things to get into tech, any tips and tricks. And then at times we will also have other people on that are, experts in resume writing or recruiting and or other teachers and how they got into tech as well. Maybe teachers that have been in tech for a few years to kind of tell us what to look out for. And I always say, like, the good, bad, and ugly. What you see online is a very, pleasant world and everything's peachy keen. But I like to get down into the, what happens when things don't work out? What happens when I'm getting ghosted by these companies? What should I do? And so always leaning on people that are experts or are a few years ahead of you, I think is key. Yeah, we're planning on on one, I believe, for April. And then I also created a community on a platform called Volley, which is a completely asynchronous platform. And I started utilizing the connections I made and asking SaaS leaders certain questions, kind of similar to this. And yeah, that's been really helpful, because then I can showcase to people when they ask me, what are you doing to upskill? I'm utilizing my connections to do something within the SaaS space, right? So that people can learn from one another. And so I would encourage you, don't wait for someone to invite you to do XYZ. You can do any of those things on your own.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway that anyone can have from any of this teacher transition. Anyone that you follow, anyone that you read about, anything that you basically do, the number one thing you have to do is take initiative. If you just sit and wait for something to happen, nothing ever happens. It's kind of like learning to drive for the first time. I can do a simulator all day long, sit in my house and simulate driving. But if I actually go on the road and try to drive, it's not going to be nearly the same experience that it will be within my home. So it's kind of the same sort of thing, just like with teaching, you had to upskill, right? The difference though, is that when you upskill in the non-education space, in the non-like direct school space, you actually get rewarded for the upskilling. And so that's just a different thing that you know, in Texas here for your master's degree, for upskilling for a master's degree, that's like $10,000, $20,000 average for a master's degree. You get a $1,000 to $2,000 bump a year. So if you're thinking about that, it's going to take you till you to retire to recoup the funds for what you did for your master's degree, but yet it's a requirement. But if you are in your regular jobs and, just doing the initiative of doing these certain things of upskilling and things like that, now your base pay is way more than your base pay would have been if you would have never upskilled or taken any sort of initiative.
Absolutely. And that's what I like, that there's opportunity to move up as opposed to an education when you saw the salary and you're like, okay, I get $100 more each year. I'm not okay with that. And so as someone who always did above and beyond attending workshops, doing things from Board of Ed, getting my master's, frankly, it's disappointing to not see that come back. And so within tech, I've already seen how people have quickly made the jump and not having to wait 20 to 30 years to see that come to fruition.
And then this last bit, I guess I would love for you to share with everyone how you kind of landed where you are now, because I think there's some like interesting bits of story there too. And then maybe tell people because I know that you applied for a ton of positions and tons of things. And I know that people ghost you just like they do when you're dating. So maybe kind of share a little bit about that experience and then how it kind of got you to where you are right now in your new position.
So it's funny because I told someone, I feel like I'm in the movie Professional Sense. He's just not that into you, because there were so many opportunities where I had people that would refer me or, oh, I know someone that can chat with you and get through the side door, as I say, because if you're trying to simply apply, I found no results with that. Just kind of sending out your resume to places was zero luck for me. And so I significantly changed my strategy and really did a bunch of these chats with people and told them that I was interested. And then, is there anyone you think I should talk to? What are your ideas and where I go? And everyone was like, Edtech. And so that's where I kind of focused. But then I started realizing customer success needed in different industries. And that's when I started branching out. And I wish I had done that before. So any educator looking to pivot to tech, don't limit yourself to Edtech. There's fintech, health tech, martech, anything that is a topic has a software to help run it. So it's shocking what is out there, and you can definitely find your niche. And so what was difficult was I was getting my hopes up in certain scenarios. Oh, this person referred me. I have this going on. And I would get to certain points of the interview process. And then it's like, oh, thank you. This other person has more experience than you do. This person's been a CSM for years. And I said, oh, of course, you have to go with them, so that's a little crushing to constantly being told for an entry level role that you need 5+ years experience. And so, there's been tons of people that didn't respond, recruiters that didn't respond, hiring managers that didn't respond. And when I thought about it, that's a red flag. That means a few things. That their organization is maybe doesn't have enough people to support what's happening. Maybe they have too many things on their plate or whatever. It wasn't meant to be. And so I started with the mantra of thank you, next. Shout out to Ariana Grande. So that would play out in my mind. And I'm like, okay, they're lost. If they're saying no to me, I know what I can bring. I know my value, and I will find what I'm looking for. And so that was kind of my mindset. I would continue with my contract role, really putting in all of my efforts and doing a phenomenal job in there so that I can utilize those examples when I continued my search. And so 2022 began, I just took a break. I'm not looking anymore. I'm just going to see what happens. And so I was looking on LinkedIn. I saw a comment that someone had made, happened to be a hiring manager. We were both in the same CS community. Same thing. Shoot your shot. So I did that, reached out, very nice, chatted with him, and that's how things got started. And so now I've landed a full-time role through networking and community building, but it was a community I've been a part of since July. So again, these things take time. It's something that I committed to attending office hours. It's something that I took initiative and hosted a session. So there's definitely a lot that I did instead of of, just saying, oh, we're a part of this community, I was able to say, I hosted a session. I know XYZ. And it was the same thought leaders and people that the hiring manager, and that's how the company thinks. So I think that is key, thinking about the company and what they value and making sure that it matches what you value. So it's not just a vetting on their end, make sure that you are vetting the company as well. So when you have those open conversations and they're able to answer your questions, I think that's key. If it's more like this transactional feeling of, tell me about yourself, what was a challenge you had? That I didn't really vibe with. When it's more of a conversation and they're just trying to get to know you as a human and what you think about this field, that's what really clicked for me.
Yeah. And I think that everyone has their own unique journey with how they get there. And I think it's important for us to be able to understand that there are different journeys and it's okay to have different journeys. And I think trusting your gut and where you feel comfortable is really important. And you said something key. And I think that the tricky thing with teaching is you don't really get the chance. You have one quick interview. That's it. You don't really get to vet it because sometimes it could just be the administration, the leadership or anything like that. But in the other space outside of education, directly education, not ed tech, all these other things, it's important in the interviews for you to also feel comfortable because sometimes you're right. It is super transactional. They're just trying to get someone in and someone out. And that might work for some people. And that's okay. Just go with what makes you feel comfortable. For me, I like the more conversational style, like what you're saying, something that feels more comfortable. I want to make sure that I'm vibing with where I go. So I also made it intentional, just like you did, to make sure that wherever I went, I felt comfortable and also passionate about what I was doing. I think it's important for you to take that like passion, like you're very passionate about building relationships and that customer side. And I love that. And we have, each of us has taken a different position outside of teaching. That doesn't mean that your pathway has to be exactly the same. And customer success is different from company to company. It's different from organization to organization. And so as long as you're building those relationships, and I think the powerful piece for me about everything that you've done is one, persistence, having the ability to really try and try again is important. And then also the power of networking. So you didn't just network on LinkedIn and whatever else. You also took it offline off LinkedIn to other ways to kind of network, because that's also important to continue building those relationships. And I know that Stella and I have known each other for a year and we just kind of like, we're not spending every day talking every day, all day long, but we do check in with each other. And Stella has always been pretty persistent about continuing the conversation, which for me, I appreciate. I think sometimes I'm sure you get this now too, where you just get peppered like, hey, can you help me do this like right now? And it's like, I would like to build a relationship with you first so I feel comfortable. Like I want to help as many people. And I'm sure you feel the same way. But just making sure that you're building those relationships, just like, I think you mentioned something last time. What was it?
I think of networking as just like an in-person interaction. So you're not going to go up to someone, hi, Leena, nice to meet you. Can you look at my resume? That would never happen. Or, hi, Leena, nice to meet you. Can I talk to you for 30 minutes tomorrow? No, the answer would be no. And so you have to do the same thing when you're online. So it is a lot of relationship building. Why should this person, out of their personal life, out of their work life, out of their side hustle, take time to respond to you? So kind of flip that instead of a me serving thing. What is it that I can reach out and ask that is not found on Google, that is not found on YouTube, that is not found on their website or their LinkedIn profile? So really being intentional of your questions and then doing something kind of different, not the whole, what do you love about your company? They probably get that question asked 10,000 times. The way that you can shift that, what's a recent event or initiative that your company has put on or will be doing that you're excited about? I bet not too many people ask that. So it's just like kind of shifting the questions that you ask instead of, what is the work-life balance like? When's the last time what's a vacation you're looking forward to? And so like just different ways to ask questions, I think is huge as well, because people.
I think it's a good point. Like I would never be at a bar and be like, hey, you look super professional. I bet that you're a top level CEO. Do you want to take a look at my resume? Like that's just not how it works. You have to like build connections. And I think that the people that we have longest in our lives that we've met over time, like I've met with a lot of people. Have I continued conversations with them? No. Have I appreciated that they've reached out to me? Yes. But it's really it's a give and take, right? Like If you just come up to me, it's kind of like your parents. If you just come up to your parents as a kid and all you do ever is just ask for money. Hey, mom, can you give me this? Hey, mom, can you give me this? Hey, mom, can you give me this? But you're never like, take the time to say, hey, mom, thank you so much. I know how much hard, I know how hard you work. It's just going to be this cold relationship. So you want to make sure that it's also a two-way street, because sometimes we're also people who reach out to are excited and they have like more innovative ways and more practices and things like that. And so sometimes it's just refreshing to also connect you all to, people. It also is humbling sometimes, like, oh me, I can't believe how far I've come. Like, so sometimes I also like enjoy those conversations too. It's just, I'm passionate too about relationship building. And I think your point is really valid. It's not just like, you're not a walking billboard. So you have to make sure that you are, really just be authentic. I think that's the most important part. Be as authentic as possible. And I think a lot of things will come from that.
Absolutely. Yes. And like be in the driver's seat. What I see a lot is people, will send a message once and then I don't know if they're expecting me or whoever to keep the conversation going, but I'm just going to answer what you ask. And like, then it's up to you to keep it going. So for myself, every time I reached out to someone, I would send a personalized note. When they accepted my connection request, I would say, thank you for connecting with me, and then ask something different. So it's like this continuing, as you said, to take that initiative, because honestly, people are just clicking like accept, 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 or ignore, ignore, ignore. And so they're not going to say, oh, let me go back and look at this message and see if I answered every A, B, and C question that was in there. So continuing to drive that conversation, even something like Fridays, I intentionally send things out to certain people. Happy Friday. Hope you had a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. Or what do you have going on this weekend? Hope you can relax. So that's something you could do when there's holidays, when there's different things that are coming up. Make sure that it's, on a Monday. Happy Monday. Have a great week coming up. Just different things like that. Sending them articles that you read that might align with them. Sending them gifts. Being a human, authentic. Laughter is huge. I use humor a ton. So definitely bring yourself to these conversations.
100% agree. Thank you, Stella, so much for joining us today. I know other people are going to find value in your story, and remember to connect with Stella. Keep it authentic, keep it original, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You've made it this far. I appreciate all of your support. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, throw the comments below in the comment section. I'm always looking for new ideas and hot trends, or if you're looking to sponsor our podcast and video episodes, reach out to us on any of our social media channels. And you can even find us anywhere. Find your podcasts. Once again, my name's Leena Marie Saleh, the Edtech Guru, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.